today. So, every once in a while, you come across in your study something that's profound, or at least profound to you, and that's, as the case, what I have said in the past on this channel is that I'm not going to mass produce content unless it's interesting to me, and I don't want to repeat myself or just do things for attention and clicks, etc. So sometimes there's going to be a while between videos, and sometimes it'll be shorter duration. In this case, happens to be shorter duration since my last video, where I talked a little about gematria and geometry. Today, we're going to be bringing a voice from the past back to life, and that voice is from a man named William Kuhn, whose picture is shown below. He was born in 1849 and died in 1924. Brother Kuhn, Worshipful Brother Kuhn, was a 32nd degree Scottish Rite, and he was in the grand line of the York Rite. He was the grand high priest of his chapter when he wrote the essay that I'm going to read to you in 1897. So these words were written, I'm going to guess, in 1897 because he was the Grand High Priest in that year, and he kicks off the essay with saying he is the Grand High Priest. So this is words from over 125 some odd years ago. But they're still relevant today. And so we're going to bring his voice back. And today's topic is York Rite Masonry. So if you are a Freemason, this will be interesting to you. If you are a York Rite Mason, this will definitely be interesting to you. And if you're not a Mason, this may still be interesting to you too, because you can apply this to other things outside of Masonry. Because a lot of what he's saying applies to things outside of Masonry. Now, also bear in mind that the words he's using, the words he's saying, these are in a published essay. So I'm not giving away any secrets, but we're going to talk a little bit about what York Rite is. So if it's something that might be interesting to you, I myself am in York Rite, am Knights Templar, and I hold those things very dear, and I would like to see things improve. And it's funny that words from 125 years ago echo today to be the same problems or issues, which I guess is a lesson learned for all of us. So I'm going to read this essay. So this might take a little bit, so you don't have to stare at me. You can put my voice on and go about your business and listen, however you want to do it. Worshipful Brother Kuhn, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. He wrote a number of essays, so this is one of them. This is called The High Purpose and Genius of Royal Arch Masonry. It goes as follows. As General Grand High Priest, I am endeavoring to visit as many grand chapters as possible during my term of office, and I have but one theme: more dignified and impressive ritualism and a moral and educational value of the Capitular degrees. It is a lamentable fact that Royal Arch Masonry has not come into its own. Many Freemasons are proud of the fact that they are Master Masons, or Knights Templar, or Scottish Rite Masons, but seldom do they boast of being Royal Arch Masons. There must be a reason for this, and it lies in the fact that capitular degrees have been conferred in an undignified manner, and the moral, historical, and educational value have been entirely neglected. But a change is coming. 125 years ago, a change is coming, and these degrees are receiving more attention and a more dignified rendition than ever before. It has been established beyond a doubt that even the most light-headed of men prefer dignified work and an occasional glimpse of the moral and intellectual values contained therein. Royal Arch Masonry will come into its own as soon as these facts are recognized. Freemasonry is a beautiful allegory which unfolds to the thinking Freemason the interesting story of the loss, the recovery, and the practical application of that which we call the Word. This is all that the great textbook Freemasonry contains. The loss is symbolized in the lodge, and the recovery, with its practical application to life, is symbolized in Royal Arch Masonry. Freemasonry is a golden thread, a central idea running through all of the degrees, and around which all the symbolism from Freemasonry revolves. This central idea, or the goal of Freemasonry, upholds the entire fabric, and unless this is kept in mind, the whole structure falls to the ground, and this center is the Master's Word. Freemasonry is not a lot of degrees piled one upon another without any connecting link, or a heterogeneous mass gathered together with the mere idea of fooling the candidate into taking many degrees. But there is this goal running through ancient craft masonry, of which the capitular degrees are an important part thereof. The non-recognition of this fact has prevented Royal Arch Masonry from coming into its own. It has been misunderstood, misinterpreted, and made a joke, instead of recognizing the greatest field for intellectual and moral development of anything in Freemasonry. This correlation of the degrees of ancient craft masonry was recognized by the United Grand Lodge of England when it stated that ancient craft masonry consists of the degrees of entered apprentice, fellow craft, master mason, together with the Holy Royal Arch. And in the second section it declared that the lodges may confer the orders of chivalry under their several constitutions. It is a part of ancient craft masonry. This means that the Royal Arch degree is a part of ancient craft masonry, and the orders of chivalry were recognized as Masonic. This constitutes York Rite Freemasonry, and it naturally follows that one degree is not higher than another, but is a part of the unfolding of an interesting story, and the Royal Arch is as much a part of ancient craft masonry as the master's degree, and it may be truthfully stated that no one is in possession of all of the ancient craft masonry without the Royal Arch. In this interesting relation and correlation, we have the beautiful symbolism of the loss, the recovery, and the interpretation of the Master's Word. If there is a loss, there must be a recovery, and the recovery is of little value unless you interpret the recovery. It would be merely theoretical, philosophical nonsense to discover the Master's Word and fail to interpret it in a practical application to our duties as Freemasons. The Royal Arch portrays this recovery. That is, you receive the degree in a manner that will enable you to recognize that you have made the discovery. Unfortunately, many who have received the Royal Arch degree did not receive anything, and the whole thing was merely a joke. Many newly made Master Masons have been disappointed not in receiving that which has been promised to them. Originally, the word may have been given in the master's degree, but the introduction of the legends necessarily made a fourth degree possible. Not only made it possible, but absolutely necessary to symbolize this recovery. This is the story of Freemasonry. We are searching for the truth, the Master's Word, and this search is evolutionary, constantly rising to a higher and better conception. This is well illustrated in the conception of Jehovah from that of Abraham down to the time of Christ. Every prophet took an advanced step in his conception of deity, and the tribal God of Moses became the Father, omnipotent and loving to all who worshipped him. And I am omitting and skipping some parts which I'm not entirely comfortable with speaking, even though it is published work, but for the benefit of Freemasons out there, you understand. Freemasonry is a great school in which every Freemason, if he desires, may educate himself. He will not only be a historian, but a Bible student. If he is a reader, he will find the footprints of Freemasonry in all history, in the arts and sciences. The chapter degrees illustrate symbolically and teach four important and necessary lessons, which he who seeks that which was lost, who should make the recovery, must have in his heart and soul. Without the possession of these attributes, no recovery will ever be made, and that which was lost will forever remain in darkness. Every Freemason is symbolically a workman, whether his place is in the quarry or shop. Every day finds him standing before the overseers to test the work brought by him according to the designs laid down on our great trestle board. These designs require good work and square work, because only good work and square work can be used in the building of the temple. A square man, and a square man only, a man who stands foursquare to the world, not a trickster, not a politician, not a dough-face, nor a weather vane, is demanded. A man who can face the world unshaken, unashamed, a bold, uncompromising man for all things right is needed everywhere. In the great search for that which was lost, such a man has taken a long step on his journey. One of the greatest essentials today is to have an open mind. You and I are too bigoted in many things. We have our set ways, our set way of thinking. You remember that when a beautiful stone was presented, it was rejected because it does not fit the square of the overseer, and they threw it away into the rubbish. The trouble has been in the past, as it is today, a great hindrance to progression. That we are all carrying about little dinky squares, and every time anything new comes up, we put those squares up to it, our notion of the thing, not our reason, but chiefly a notion and conception. and if it does not fit the little square of ours, we heave it into the garbage. We do not stop to analyze the question. We have a preconceived notion, not an idea, hence we throw the new thing away. This is true in politics, this is true in religion, this is true in science. In fact, it is true in everything that is new. 125 plus odd years ago, he's talking about the same things that afflict us today. This is the story of the Word. Everything new that comes, we meet in a defensive manner. We do not canvass it and examine it, but without thinking, we reject it. We are not open-minded. I do not believe that any man can discover the Word who is a bigot, who is not willing to weigh things. We know what bigotry has done in the world, that it has kept churches apart and has made partisan politics. A Freemason ought to be a man with an open mind, willing to analyze anything that comes along, from the humblest to the most scientific. We have heard a great deal about the fundamentalists and the liberals in religion. The fundamentalist backs up and says, no, that's not according to my notion. I reject it. And the liberalist takes everything that comes along, fails to analyze it well enough to see whether it fits or not. You have heard of a distinguished citizen who was scared to death for fear that somebody would find out that his grandfather might have been a monkey. It is being said that on account of science, men are doubting the Bible and rejecting it. This is purely unthinking, superficial view. My advice is, read all the scientists and all the higher criticism, and then analyze them and think it over. I know where you will land. There is no danger to the thinking man of becoming an atheist. All the criticism, all the scientific books, all the theories on creation, when we apply them intelligently and correctly, make the Bible stronger than ever. That which was mere faith before now is substantiated by reason. Do not be afraid of higher criticism. Do not be afraid of the so-called sciences. If the religion you have cannot stand the test of true and proven science, it is not worth very much. Religion will meet all scientific truth and meet it in the proper spirit and in the proper way. It may change some of our preconceived notions, but laying aside these notions, your religion will come out stronger and better than ever. I am not afraid about evolution. I believe in evolution. I cannot see the flowers in the front yard without making me believe in the principle of evolution. These beautiful flowers were once weeds. The process of evolution has made them what they are now. So with everything. But evolution does not necessarily mean monkeyism at all. And even if it did, behind it all stands the fiat created. We cannot get away from that. I do not care whether this world was made in 7 days or whether it took billions of years. Back of it all stands the world created. So far as the monkey is concerned, if we are evolved from the monkey, then it is a fine type of evolution, and we must congratulate the monkey. Of course, a great many people are afraid of having their ancestry exposed, and I don't blame them. But the world does not care a fig as to who your grandfather was, but it is asking, who are you, and what are you going to do? And even the monkey evolution is not nauseating, as I would rather have a good, clean monkey from my great-great-great-grandfather than some people that I currently know. A Freemason ought to look things squarely in the face, lay aside his prejudice, and study the question carefully. There is nothing to be afraid of. Let us lay aside our dinky squares and recognize the beautiful and not heave it into the trash because we don't understand it. There are many things that have been thrown into the trash that after years were discovered as the most beautiful and important things. Many men have lived, wrought hard, and died rejected. It took years before their work was recognized, and they stand today as remarkable men in the history of nations and of the world. An open-minded man is never a partisan. It is all right to belong to a party, but it is all wrong to have that party own him. And he failed to exercise horse sense in analyzing questions. A Freemason ought to be an independent man, with no yoke about his neck. When Freemasons can analyze questions, consider them deliberately, come to a rational conclusion, they are coming closer to receiving that word. The next lesson is that of self-control, obedience to constituted authority. This is taught in the past master's degree. Of course, very few of you have seen this lesson in the degree. And if you've not taken it, you have no idea what I'm talking about. This degree is used chiefly in some grand jurisdictions as a means of making a fool out of someone, and as conferred is a disgrace to Freemasonry. Yet it contains one of the fundamental principles of Freemason, that before a man can rule, he must first learn to obey, that before he will teach, he must first be a student, a craftsman before he will be a master of the craft, a subject before he would be a king, and before he would enlighten others, he must become enlightened himself. These principles are fundamental, But the tendency of our present day is that a man wants to be the boss before he has ever entered apprentice. He wants to be the master of his lodge before he has even ever been an obedient craftsman. The world is suffering from unprepared men, unprepared for existing conditions, unprepared for an honest day's work, unprepared for adverse conditions that may arise, possessed of a mere smattering of everything, but very little of anything, an expert in all things, but actually an expert in nothing. Undisciplined men, men who lack self-control, are a curse of the age. A disregard of law and incompetency to perform is as prevalent among the better class as among the crooks. Bold defiance of law is everywhere present. Men wink at the violation of law, especially the 18th Amendment. No Freemason will violate this law or wink at the violation thereof, and if he does, he will never find the true word. A true past master has learned the lesson of obedience in the school of discipline, has become master of himself, and is thoroughly prepared for the duties upon which he would enter. There must have been supreme satisfaction to King Solomon to erect the magnificent and costly temple of Jehovah. It represented all that the Oriental mind could conceive as an offering to God. The inspiring display that marked the preliminary step, too, in the dedication of the temple is one of sublimity and glory. The inspired writer depicted it so graphically, describing the scene, touched the theme with more than mortal pen. Picture the temple reflecting its golden splendor under the noonday sun, and imagine the great choir chanting antiphonally the wonderful psalm, "Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, your everlasting doors, and let the King of glory come in." Listen to that inspiring prayer of the king, standing on the brazen scaffold in his rich and kingly robe. See the fire descended on the sacrificial altar and the temple illuminated by the divine presence, while the vast throng fall prostrate, worshiping and praising. For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Who would not like to have witnessed this wonderful scene? But has not the same scene been reenacted in many human heart? It may not have had the external splendor, it may not have been that of a king or a prince, but that of a humble man who toiled daily. Yet this individual personally dedicated, partook of the same splendor, heard the same choir, uttered the same prayers, and beheld the fire descended on his meager sacrifice, and felt the glory of the divine presence. We are indeed temple builders. Some are building a magnificent temple, some are building the best temple they can. Men differ in ability. Men differ in opportunity, but it does not matter whether you are building a little temple, building of bricks rather than granite, or bricks without straw. The temple is being built. You and I will have to complete our own temple, and the last stone must be put in position, and may it receive the plaudits as of old. Grace, grace be unto it. Companions, do you not think that if a man is independent, does square work and square work only, controls himself, and is obedient to constituted authority, who is building a temple in this world, do you not think he is getting pretty close to this word? I have often thought of the 3 weary sojourners coming out of Babylonian captivity and making their long and toilsome journey from Babylon to Jerusalem with only one purpose in mind, and that was to rebuild the city and the house of the Lord. These 3 Jews were heroes, but while just released from captivity, it should be remembered that the great age of the Jewish nation was not in regal splendor in its solidarity as a nation, in its armies, in its wealth, or in its expansive boundaries, but its golden age was the 70 years of captivity. It was the literary age of Jewry. Out of it came its sacred writings, the collation of its remarkable history of her people, her prophetic literature, and her Psalter. Had the captivity never occurred, the world might never have seen or have been denied its greatest heritage, the Old Testament. From the school of captivity emerged a people immortal, a people who were the creators of the sacred and undying literature of the world and the steadfast adherents to Jehovah. Note the purpose and aim of these 3 weary sojourners, a purpose that was never lost in their long and toilsome journey, on foot, over rough and rugged roads through desolation and amid ruins, but ever onward toward Jerusalem, the city of their fathers. This journey was not taken to secure ease, comfort, emolument, or honor, but solely for the purpose of engaging in the noble and glorious work of rebuilding the city and house of the Lord. This truly was a noble purpose, but it did not embrace all, as they did not expect even the hope of a fee or reward. This was the climax of their noble purpose. It was unselfish. It was unstinted service, a service to their home, to their people, and to their God. What greater encomium can be given to these faithful, devout, returning captives than to say they served? Any portion of the work, however humble, their willing hands were willing to perform. The keystone should bear upon it, I serve. Service, self-sacrifice should be the battle cry of Freemasonry, and he who does not wish to serve or sacrifice will never discover the word. These three zealous Jews discovered it. They did not discover it in a palace, but deep within a vault. They found it after digging away in garbage, away from the sight of men, not for worldly applause or honor, but for pure service, and thus they found it. This is the beautiful story of Freemasonry. The loss and the recovery, by men being fully prepared and qualified searching for it, and willing to make long and toilsome journeys through life with one end in view, to assist the noble and glorious work of building the house of the Lord, working for humanity without the hope of fee or reward. When Freemasonry grasps this idea that it is the life of service, a life of self-sacrifice, then will Royal Arch Masonry come into its own. When we grasp the idea of Royal Arch Masonry, as I have tried to explain it, it will no longer be a mere stepping stone from the lodge to the commandery, but we shall consider it an honor to be Royal Arch Masons, and no higher honor can come to any man than to appreciate and understand Royal Arch Masonry. Companions, there has been too much rush. There was never a time in Freemasonry when this ought to be brought home with greater force. 125 odd years ago. Same stuff happens today. There has been a great rush into Freemasonry. There has been a hip and hoorah about it. Men have come having no conception of what Freemasonry is, but they are going to drop out. The tide is going out. Demissions and suspensions for non-payment of dues will increase. What are you going to do with this vast amount of unthinking material? Among this material are many good men as well as a mass of driftwood. Many have come without qualifications. Let me tell you a story. During the Civil War, Senator Vance of North Carolina, one of the most brilliant men of the southern states, being an active Confederate, was disenfranchised by the government. After the war, he was elected to the Senate. He went to Washington with his certificate of election, was informed that his election was all right, but having been disqualified and his disability not yet removed, he therefore could not be seated. He was informed that if he could remain in Washington a short time, Congress would doubtless pass a bill removing that disability. But Senator Vance was determined to go home, and in doing so he took an ordinary coach and a seat opposite two ministers, a Baptist and a Presbyterian. These two dominies soon became engaged in a warm discussion on the question of foreordination and election. The war waged hotly between the Navy and infantry of the Lord's kingdom. After a while, the Presbyterian minister noticed that Senator Vance was very much interested and said to him, "Stranger, you seem to be interested in our discussion. What is your opinion of election?" And Senator Vance said, "I have a very positive opinion. An election is not worth a damn until your disabilities are removed." This is a good Masonic as well as theological statement. Too many men have been and are still coming in whose disabilities have not been removed. They are here. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to educate them as Freemasonry ought to educate their young men, her young men? Or are you going to let them drift and finally drop out by taking their demits or by non-payment of dues? Every man is not fit to be made a Mason. There are some who naturally will drop out if Freemasonry is not congenial. We have moral morons as well as intellectual morons, and a moron is not fit to be made a Mason whether he is one morally or intellectually. Will you help those that remain? Are you going to have a circus out of it, or are you going to be sincere and teach these men the great central thought of Freemasonry? Now, consider these things. That the chapter means such. It is the great stepping stone to the central idea, the recovery, and its interpretation and application. It is not foolishness. It is sincere, dignified work, just as much as the church itself. I sometimes think that if we took Freemasons sincerely, studied it, brought it out as I have tried to explain to you, that it would lead every man to the door of the church. So those were the words of William H. Kuhn. I have omitted, again, portions of it. But that's what he had to say, bringing his voice back over 100 years later. And a lot of what he says is relevant to today, is relevant to our situations today. And that is a lesson in and of itself, that if you dig back through history, in this case Freemasonry, but in anything really, but we'll just go with Freemasonry. If you dig back in history to the 1800s, which were a very turbulent time in Freemasonic history, If you go back to the 1700s, the 1600s, you're going to find a lot of the same lamentations, meaning that the more things change, the less they change, right? The more years grow on, we tend to loop in these cycles, and things don't really ever actually change. So there were a lot of words in that. Thank you for sticking around this long to hear it. From time to time, I will be bringing back voices from the past because their words hold value today. And as I find those, I will share those with you. So thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. If you liked the content, give me a like. And otherwise, I will see you soon. Stay safe, everyone. Stay healthy. Keep studying. And we'll talk to you soon.